A question about the Fed.
Right next to you, please. Yeah.
About the Federal Reserve.
Oh, Federal Reserve, my favorite. Too late.
He's
too late.
You're considering suing Jay Powell. Can you update us on your thinking about that and tell us where you are in your search for a new chair?
Well, he took a building that could have been painted and fixed, like we're going to fix this building for very little money. And that was in better shape. He took a building and what they did to that building, they built a basement under the building. It didn't have a basement. This is simple to understand. The building is right next to a thing called the Potomac River. The beautiful Potomac River. That means lots of water. And the water is right under the building. And they decide to build a basement under the building in the Potomac River. So in order to do that, you need the biggest pumps that God ever created. And they were pumping their hearts out, but as big as those pumps are, you can't pump it fast enough because it's the Potomac River. If the pump were bigger than this room, you couldn't pump it. But they tried, and they've been building a basement. And I said, why did you want to build a basement? I thought it would be a good idea, sir. A basement is the least valuable floor in a building. I know a lot about real estate. The least valuable thing is the basement. And you don't build a basement under a building that is 2 feet above the river that's right next door. You know, it's right near the river. People don't realize the river's right out their window. And that's the beginning. They did just a terrible job. Instead of, I could take a ceiling like this, they'd rip out the ceiling because they see a crack. Let's rip out the ceiling. And I would fix the crack and I would paint the ceiling. And under the ceiling, they put the most incredible protective material. They go out by 3/4 inch, brand new, gorgeous 3/4 inch plywood and sheetrock, hardened sheetrock. And they had it all over the building. So if a little piece of flake came down, but the problem is when they took the ceiling down and it would hit, they spent millions of dollars on protective material that you didn't have to spend anything. He could have done that job for $25 million, and they spent $3.1 billion. He said 2.7, but it's really 3.1. They just don't want to include one of the buildings in the deal. But it's going to be much more than that. And I think he'll be long gone by the time it finishes because they've got a long way to go. And then I hear they want to hire 3,000 economists. What are they going to do? And he got it all wrong. He's too late. We call him Jerome Too Late Powell. It will live with him forever. I believe that name will live with him forever, along with the name Pocahontas and some of the others. He worked closely with Pocahontas, by the way. She's another beauty. But we have a real problem there. They're way over budget, and they did a job that shouldn't have been done. It was unnecessary to be done. I could have gotten the greatest wallpaper anywhere in the world from the finest stores in the world. I could have fixed up a wall a little bit. It would have taken about 2 hours. And covered it with the most magnificent silk and most magnificent paper for thousands of dollars as opposed to tens of millions of dollars. What a shame it is that they did. But they would take down areas of the building that shouldn't have been taken down. They could have literally been painted, and they didn't do that. So they've got a long way to go. And I think it's just grossly incompetent, but not quite as incompetent as his decision not to do interest rates, take down interest rates, because just like they shouldn't have taken down a ceiling, they should take down interest rates. Every point costs us $360 billion a year. Think of that, $360 billion for 1 point. And we should be down at 1% because we're the leader of the world. We were always the lowest interest rate until like a certain time ago, decade, couple. But we were always, because we were the United States of America. So even if the country was run badly, we were considered like to be super prime. And now he's got us in a bad place. So we're paying $360 billion a year for each point. Now, I believe we should be 3 or 4 points lower. So that's over $1 trillion we pay every year in interest. And it's really just a paper calculation. You sign a document and you save almost $1 trillion. Because that number equates very much to the bonds that we have to buy. But despite that, we're powering through it, and we have the greatest economy maybe we've ever had. But the housing sector, people aren't able to get good mortgages. They're paying too much because of Jerome Too Late Powell. He's truly incompetent. And we'll be making another. We put a very good man in temporarily in the one spot because one of the people that was appointed by the Democrats left early. And I heard left because that person wanted lower interest rates. And I heard quit, but I have no idea. I'm sure she won't say that. I'll be naming a new chairman sometime within the next. I think I'll name it a little bit early, the new chairman. I'm down to 3 or 4 names, all good, all great. The problem is you name them and then they turn out to be not good. That's happened to me a couple of times. You name somebody, they tell you everything you want to hear, and then they go in and they turn out to be not good. I mean, he told me everything that I thought was appropriate. He turned out to be a stiff, real stiff. But other than that, I think he's doing a very good job, yes. Okay, maybe 1 or 2 more. 1 or 2 more, yes, sir, please.
President Trump unleashed a sharp critique of Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, focusing on both fiscal management and policy decisions. He began by criticizing a costly renovation of a Federal Reserve building, calling it unnecessary and poorly executed. According to Trump, the project could have been completed for around $25 million, yet expenditures ballooned to over $3 billion due to over-engineering and wasteful spending on materials that he considered excessive. A particular point of contention was the construction of a basement near the Potomac River. Trump described the project as a fundamental design flaw, requiring massive pumps to manage water intrusion, a solution he said was impractical and unnecessary. He repeatedly framed the renovation as a symbol of mismanagement, claiming simpler repairs and aesthetic improvements would have sufficed. Trump also criticized Powell's broader economic policies, especially his handling of interest rates. He argued that rates should be significantly lower, estimating that every percentage point costs the United States roughly $360 billion annually. According to Trump, current rates have led to over $1 trillion in unnecessary expenses each year, with tangible consequences for the housing market, where high rates are making mortgages increasingly unaffordable for Americans. The former president mocked plans to hire 3,000 economists, questioning the need for such a large team. He also introduced the nickname Jerome Too Late Powell, asserting that Powell's decisions would have a lasting negative legacy. Despite these criticisms, Trump acknowledged that the economy remains strong. He indicated that a new Federal Reserve chair will be appointed soon, with 3 or 4 candidates under consideration, but expressed caution, noting that past appointments had sometimes failed to meet expectations. Overall, Trump portrayed Powell as grossly incompetent in both operational and policy decisions, emphasizing that more prudent management and lower interest rates could have prevented significant financial waste and economic strain.